All right, welcome everybody to another episode of I Can Do This All Day. I'm Dan, I'm the part-time Avenger. On with me is
Mark, the resident Jedi, and today Dan has decided to put me through a very painful and torturous experience in that we've decided to rank and review the would you call it the DCEU? Is that the
yes.
official name?
For the most part, there's one movie that technically isn't canon, but
Technically, there's two versions of it.
Yes,
There's two versions of it. These are some of our favorite characters, and maybe they're not so favorite realizations. I was talking to my wife before we started, and she's like, "Oh, are you going to talk about Batman and Robin?" And I'm like, "No, that didn't make the cut, hon." Also, would not be near the top if it did, but excited to talk DC, something we haven't done yet, and we've got 11 different films to talk through, maybe 10 and a half films to talk through, but
maybe
Dan,
12,
maybe 12. Maybe 12 in a couple weeks. There'll be 12.
Yeah.
But Dan, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so we're gonna go from worst to first, and out of the 11 movies that I picked, there was only one that without a doubt was just the bottom of the barrel, worst of the worst. I could not even bring myself to laugh out loud at the movie theater. I saw it in the movie theater, super disappointed because it had the potential of being really, really good. And that is Suicide Squad. So the David Ayer Suicide Squad. That is the bottom of the barrel of my picks. It looks like you're going to say something, Mark.
I was making sure it wasn't the Suicide Squad.
No, not
it was
the James
simply
Gunn
Suicide Squad.
Yeah, David Ayer's Suicide Squad. I believe he was the director. I might be incorrect on that one, but I'm pretty sure it's David Ayer. But all right, so I'm going to go right off the bat with some good points. Okay, so Viola Davis is Amanda Waller. Fantastic. Excellent casting for that particular character. She was spot on with everything, and very, I wasn't big on the comics on this, but from what research I had done, it's about as accurate as you can get. And she played a very intimidating baddie, if you will. Jared Leto's Joker. All right, so he got a lot of flack for this. I thought it was fine. I thought it was an okay Joker in the sense that he took it in a different direction. He put his own spin on it. It was a little bit more modernized. So I was okay with it.
The lack of eyebrows didn't bother you?
What's that?
The lack of eyebrows.
No, fine.
Okay.
Fine. The one thing that irked me that he did was the little hand over the face with the smile, and just that was kind of stupid. And
were you mad he didn't have white gloves on?
I didn't care. I thought, and you probably know why I like this because I have a pair of matching shoes, but that purple alligator leather jacket, chef's kiss.
That is very you. Yeah, that is very you.
But yeah, those were some two good spots about that movie. I actually, not everything was bad, but I really did not enjoy the movie for the most part. I'm not sure if you're like me, but I have this sense if I'm going to like a movie or not. If I start hearing popular music, like for no reason that it doesn't match what the movie's all about, then I'm like, oh, this is a cash grab. This is like an MTV Music Award cash grab that they're just going to throw in a whole bunch of pop music. And that is the reason why I'm watching this movie. And so the music, the songs were fine, right? But I'm saying in the context of the movie, it really ruined it for me, and I just didn't enjoy it, and it took me out of the movie in a lot of instances. Will Smith, unpopular opinion, I do not care about Will Smith as a lead in this movie. He's got his swagger, but you know what? A little too much Will Smith for me, and yeah, I just didn't dig it. I didn't dig his character. I thought his overall screen presence was just too much. Like I read somewhere that he really wanted to make sure that he was top billing and everyone was aware that he was the top star. I get it, man. You have Fresh Prince in a DC movie. All right, I get it. DJ Jazzy Jeff, you couldn't fit him into a part for this, but you don't need to expand on your Will Smith theatrics too much. Harley Quinn. So this is another unpopular opinion. I thought her Harley Quinn was annoying in this movie. Better in the other movies, which we'll talk a little bit about later, but her accent was inconsistent. So I was like really bothered by that. Like, pick it. If you're going to do your little Jersey accents or whatever it was, stick with it. Don't go back and forth between an American accent to the little Harley Quinn accent. Just stick with it. And then the worst part, in my opinion, about this movie, wish there's a lot of bad things about this movie, but I'm sure you'll have something to say about it. But archaeologist Dr. June Moon, played by Cara Delevingne, who looks like she's 14 in the movie, and she's supposed to be an archaeologist, and she is one of the big baddies, or the I couldn't stand it, man. I just could not stand it. That was almost like Denise Richards in the James Bond movie. Like, she's supposed to be like a nuclear astrophysicist, and here's this very young looking model, very beautiful woman, right? But by no means does she look like an archaeologist. That I don't know. I'll refrain from my crude comments.
What do archaeologists look like, Dan?
Well, you know what? They don't look like someone with painted on eyebrows and a very youthful appearance.
They should have a whip and a hat
They should.
and
Hey,
a
man,
fedora.
that's
Is that what we're talking about?
That's one.
Is that where we're going? Is that where we're going?
But
So we're going to disagree on this one, and I'll dig more into my thoughts on it later. I think that we have some opposing views. But how dare you? They gave us exactly what we wanted with Harley Quinn in that movie. Exactly. Just Margot Robbie going a little crazy and eye candy. That was the whole point of the character in that movie. And it was nailed, in my opinion. And when my wife listens to this, she's probably going to punch me. But that's exactly my thoughts on that.
hey,
I'm gonna counter. Go ahead.
No, I'm not saying it wasn't. She is not a good Harley Quinn. I'm not saying that. I just found her character in this movie inconsistent and annoying because the accent wasn't on 100% throughout the entire movie.
I didn't catch that. And maybe that's because the entire movie didn't. Maybe there were areas where it didn't keep your attention in general, because this is not a great movie in a list of a bunch of not great movies. So,
and just so you know, too, like, for everyone who's watching or listening, we're not the biggest DC fans. We like the characters and we watch the movies, obviously, of course. But I rewatched this not hunk, this big pile of garbage again today, just to make sure that the steaming pile of shit was fresh in my mind when I talked about it. Awful movie. Worst of the worst. Off to you.
I'm going to counter with the movie that I literally stopped watching the first time I tried to watch it. And let me give you context about time of when I stopped watching it. This was literally in the hot spot of 2020 in the pandemic, when it was released on HBO Max, and they were like, "Here, have this for free." And Birds of Prey, terrible, just the worst. You go from spunky Harley in Suicide Squad to, "Oh, woe is Harley. Oh, I'm sad Harley. Oh, I need a girl power movie." Why do we have DC Spice World on this list at all? Does not belong. They took what was this badass group of female characters in the comics that were edgy, that were vigilant, and they made it super fluffy girl power, which is kind of a DC theme a little bit, as they were trying to maximize on a few things. But one of the DC themes that I think is ridiculous is they always force their female lead characters to be injured by a man or to be weakened by a man. And that's some things that Carol Danvers wouldn't deal with, homeboy. So
Okay.
I'm just saying that kind of just like, why? Like, for real. But there were some great characters that they touched on. It was nice to see them dig into the bag, right, in general in this movie, and touch on some of the other characters that were a little bit far stretching. We'll talk more about that when we talk about the other Suicide Squad. But in general, I was a little I was really disappointed in this. I thought it would grab me. I was excited. I enjoy Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. I might be butchering her name. I don't know if it's Robbie or Roby or whatever, but I love her. She's great. She's also a super big nerd. So if she somehow is listening to our podcast, good on you, Margot. Keep going.
She will be.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Right.
But in general, I think that I think that this movie just didn't get me. It didn't get me, and it's not a sexist thing. It's not anything like that. It was just like, nah, can't do it. The whole first 30 minutes are like a big sad sob story with an egg sandwich, and I'm just like, huh?
So were you laying in bed while watching this movie?
No, I was sitting in my living room. I was laying on the couch. There was sunlight. It wasn't nighttime. It was mid-pandemic. I'm pretty sure that based on the date it came out, my son was not born yet. It came out February 7th of 2020. Is that right?
I don't know when your son was born.
No, but okay. He was born in 21. He was born in 21. So
Okay.
this came to HBO Max. It didn't release on HBO Max, but it came to HBO Max early in the pandemic when we were like, I had already watched Tiger King. I had already like gotten through a lot of stuff, and it was like, okay, what else can we watch? No other. The last movie I saw pre-pandemic in the theaters was Rise of Skywalker. I was ready for a good movie, and this just didn't deliver. Didn't deliver, my friend.
So would you say like the acting was bad? Were you just not entertained?
The story, it didn't build enough for me. It didn't the boo-hoo-ness didn't it started out sour, and it didn't change the flavor for me. That's a strong character that they made weak because of the Joker in the cartoon where Harley Quinn was really introduced, Batman the Animated Series, the best Batman, solely due to Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy. She didn't get sad when the Joker left her in prison or any of those episodes. She got pissed off and like was super strong and teaming up with other female baddies. Where in this situation, sad Harley. Oh, sad Harley. No.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna hold off on
And
a little bit of that.
there is another in this list. There's another movie where they approach sad Harley in what I would consider to be a much better way by a much better filmmaker.
Okay. All right. Hey, it's your bottom of the list. So Suicide Squad, David Ayer Suicide Squad, and Birds of Prey for you. All right. I'm gonna go on to my number 10 just because I want to save a little bit of conversation. But I'm gonna go with Joss Whedon's Justice League. That is my second worst, in my opinion, DC movie. And the reason as to why, once again, I was in a theater. I was rolling my eyes and I was like looking to the side of me thinking like, is everyone else taking crazy pills because you're not making any type of like sigh of like, oh god, like what the hell is that? Like they're just stone-faced audience. I'm hoping that they were just like shocked and appalled by everything. I actually went with my niece and nephews to this, and right afterwards I asked them like, oh, so what did you think about it? I'm like, oh, it was good. And I was like, the fuck out of here, are you kidding me? Awful movie, awful movie. Not all bad, but in the list it's right down there at the bottom. And let's get it right out of the way. Superman's face. why? Oh, why did you not spend the extra cash or whatever? You couldn't, Luke Skywalker's walking around looking fairly normal in The
Oh, the new
Mandalorian and
deepfakes
Boba
are
Fett.
hot. The new deepfakes are amazing.
Wonderful. And, to not to go into Star Wars, but, you've got other characters that were CGI'd so much better. And then you got like donkey faced Henry Cavill where like someone kicked him in the mouth and he's got a mouthful of bubble gum as well too. Like it just looks awful. And I was just wondering, like, did test audiences think that this was a good idea? And just like, I don't mind it. Just pass it through.
So I'm gonna reveal a secret to you, Dan. This movie ranks exactly the same place for me.
I
And to
wonder why.
support your argument, a movie that we talked about in a previous podcast, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, came out in 2016, where they created a completely deep fake Grand Moff Tarkin. This movie came out in 2017, where they couldn't figure out a top lip for an actor, where they couldn't
Horse-faced
say,
Cavill.
I'm just saying, or they couldn't say, you know what, finish Mission Impossible, we'll wait a few weeks.
Right?
It's not that big of a deal. We'll figure it out.
For those who aren't aware that Henry Cavill had to contractually have his mustache for Mission Impossible, and that's the reasoning as to why. For the reshoots, that's why he has the horse face. Hashtag Henry Cavill horse face. Started.
I was like, did his upper lip decompose a little bit? Is that what's going on here?
It was
did
bad, man.
Doomsday bite his mouth? Arr.
The only good thing from that was like all the memes and like screenshots of that would come up afterwards. Like I still laugh when I see
it.
those.
Was distracting.
Of course.
And the other thing about that movie is it looked like what it was. A jumble together. It looked like back in the day when people used to like recut movies for the hell of it and it was disjointed and crappy. It was somebody using bits and pieces of somebody else's art to make something else for money. That's all it was. And it turns out Josh Whedon's kind of an asshole, so I'm not upset at how bad this turned out. Sorry,
so were
Buffy
you thinking,
fans.
Yeah, I know, right? So were you thinking that like when Joss Whedon was taking over, it's like, oh, cool, like he did an Avengers movie, this will be way better.
I wasn't a huge fan of the first Avengers movie I love the fact that it was on screen, but I wasn't like, this cinematically is amazing. Sure. Cinematically, that Avengers movie is kind of not great. So he took his kind of not great cinematic eye and brought it here. Great TV director. Get the fuck out of movies, dude. It seems like he's gonna be out of them anyway. Like he's pissed off so many people. It came out that he like didn't he threaten why is her name escaping me? Wonder Woman.
Gal Gadot.
Yeah, you don't threaten Gal Gadot and live. Like he's just bashing Gal and all that stuff. I'm just like, you are not a good person because she is a national imported treasure.
Wonder Woman's the saint. Oh man, yeah.
Best actor in the movie. I mean,
maybe.
Jeremy Irons is really good too.
Yeah, he is.
Jeremy Irons, Alfred, pretty underrated.
That was pretty spot on. I did enjoy him. Justice League, I think the reason why it ranks so low for me is the fact that besides the whole thing that they rushed it and then it's like, okay, there was a Superman movie and a movie with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman in it. Let's just rush and put together Justice League. Besides that, I just thought that overall,
Wonder Woman came out before Justice League.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like the Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah, did it? I can't remember.
June 2nd, 2017. Okay. Justice League, November 17th. Same year.
So, all right. So yeah, fine. But I guess it was just like completely underwhelming in the fact that you put these characters together and nothing happened. Like really nothing happened. there's like Bruce Wayne. By the way, Ben Affleck still the bomb. Not only was he the bomb in Phantoms, he was also the bomb as Batman. Um, I'll
Word,
stick
bitch.
to that.
Batfleck like a motherfucker.
I might say he's my favorite Batman. Not my favorite Bruce Wayne,
Mm.
but my favorite Batman. That's debatable for another.
I'm gonna say that he did not have enough. Because he didn't get a standalone Batman movie, I can't qualify him as holding the character throughout. I can, and we'll talk more about it as we get more into the like BVS and stuff like that. But I have a little bit. I liked him a lot. Don't get me wrong, better than Val Kilmer. But I've got thoughts.
Okay. And I'm open to that. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
like he can
Yeah.
do no wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so what did you think about Aquaman?
I'm kind of on the side of Carl Drogo in this situation. I just like Aquaman. I think is pretty great. So
I was fine with him as Aquaman in this.
mhm.
If anything, I thought he did get a bum rap to where he's like, everything that he says is all right.
Well,
Like,
it is,
yeah,
but that's okay. It's consistent.
yeah.
It just needs to be consistent. Nothing else in this entire movie is consistent. They have so many amazing actors in this film. Even the supporting actors. We talked about Jeremy Irons. They've got Miles Bennett Dyson from T2 is in this movie, right?
Yes.
I love that he's touching technology again, right? And it's just like all of these things are going on, and it's just like, why does it feel like we're missing something? And it turns out we were missing a lot, and I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Second best scene in that movie involved Aquaman, where he's like, I don't want to die. I'm young. It's the time where he's just sitting on the lasso of truth. I thought was just like the second best scene in that entire movie. It was just really, really cool and funny. It was like
Mm-hmm.
legitimately funny. And yeah, that's it. There's not really much else I have to say
No.
about the movie. Was it entertaining? Sure. If you are a DC fan and you wanted to see all of those characters on the big screen and it's like, oh my god, Justice League's the best, I hope that you enjoyed the movie. For me, not my cup of tea, and I was underwhelmed. Number 10 for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, same for me. We're agreed on 10. And again, to your point, this movie felt rushed, and it felt rushed for different reasons. I think now, like in hindsight, knowing what we know, it felt rushed because it was really just cut up and somebody was trying to put their own spin on it that didn't have as much invested, that Snyder did. So I am glad that he got a chance to do his version, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, at some point. But technically, you're next because I just rode your coattails at number 10. So what's your number 9?
Number 9, and I think the reason why I didn't like this particular movie because I didn't see the 82 other ones prior to this, but it would be Wonder Woman 84 is my number 9. I was super stoked for this movie because I really enjoyed the first Wonder Woman, and I even from the trailer, I was like, hell yeah, man! You got the 80s vibe going on, everything, and the trailer seems pretty darn funny and entertaining. But yeah, so I'll start off with some good things. I love the 80s vibe. Uh, Pedro Pascal, love him from all the movies that he's acted in, even some of the lesser known ones, like Triple Frontier on Netflix. He was really cool in that particular movie. But Kristen Wiig, I was a little bit concerned about Kristen Wiig as a character. Now she nailed it as the human form, and then that it a lot of movies suffer from like the third act final battle, and DC and even the
DC,
MCU
like
movies
every time,
every
suffers
time,
in the
really.
third act. It's they need they need a coffee break.
Yeah, but I think it was just the main reason why it's like down there is that third act, and even like halfway through the second, just lost me. I was like, what's going on and why? What's happening in this movie? Like, who's really the bad guy? Is this, is Pedro Pascal's character really just this prick that's just trying to rule the world? And like, I don't know, but you know, uh, Chris Pine, it was cool to see him back. Kind of weird how they brought him back. Like
There was only
Diana was
one person
catfish.
that saw him.
She catfished herself essentially. It's like, she fell in love with someone online, and she knew that that person wasn't the person, but was like, I'll just pretend. I'll pretend it's the person. It's so weird. Just really weird.
It's weird that they took such a strong character and made her very weak because she needed Chris Pine.
Now, I agree, but devil's advocate, do you think that it could just be like, well, why can't someone mourn the love of their life? Granted, it was like for 50 years, but
I think if you take Chris Pine out of this movie, it's better.
really, I
I
don't
don't
know.
think
Chris
Chris
Pine
Pine,
was
I mean, Chris Pine as an actor, yes, but I think there's ways to remove his character entirely. You could
true.
have used a different dude, or, you could have pulled another DC character in. You could have like, oh, this person's a superhero too. You could have done something else. Anything else. Anything else. Because it was just like, well, we liked their chemistry. Let's put them back together. We need to find a reason. Oh, she's just imagining him.
It was a clever way, though. I thought it was a clever way because she makes the wish. Obviously, he's dead. He can't fucking come back. But it's his essence. There you go.
Yeah, no, except for she was essencing all over some other dude
That's weird,
the
isn't it?
whole movie. Like, it's very weird. It's like you accept it because visually, oh, it's Chris Pine in a members only jacket. This is great. But really, it's like, no, it's not Chris Pine in a members only jacket. No, that's not his fanny pack. This is odd.
Yeah.
You need therapy. Like, therapy was big in the 80s, except for Wonder Woman.
The movie was good, but it could be better.
The
That's
movie
why
was serviceable and a very poor follow-up to the
it.
initial.
I would say that the first half was okay. I thought the first half was good. Second half
Yeah.
lost me, and like my wife even fell asleep, and I was like, "Fuck." She fell asleep. I'm not really that invested in this, but I watched it anyways.
Yeah.
That cool part at the end, though, the end credits with
Yes.
Linda
That
Carter was
was
pretty sweet.
that was a redeeming factor. That's why it's a little higher for me. It's a little higher for me because there was some fan service, there was some good points to it, right? And I'll talk about my favorite part.
Okay.
But
But let's go
yeah.
on to your number 9. I don't have much else to say about the.
My number 9 is number 9 for many, many reasons for me. So I'll set the scene for you. March 25th, 2016 was my birthday. And I went to the theaters with the wife thinking they're going to do Henry Miller's Dark Knight Returns, which is arguably one of the top 3 Batman storylines to ever grace comic pages. Like, I grew up during Nightfall with the original like Bane comic and the Azrael taking over as Batman craziness with the shooting, like Batman 500. I still have that fold out issue of Batman.
So
So
do I, my
please
friend. So
don't
do I.
think that I am a poser when I talk about best Batman storylines. Frank Miller's not the top for me, but it's in the top like 3. Right? We're not ranking that right now, but I'm like, this is an awesome storyline. This is gonna go so good. And it at the beginning, it was doing okay. We saw alcoholic Alfred. We saw the Batman do his Rocky montage, which I was like, okay, I'm okay, okay. and you got the Robin suit with Joker heckling him and stuff, and you're like, oh shit, son, there's some things going on here. This is like a little dark. It's dark. It's dark. And then Martha. And I'm like, what does that, what,
Dude loves his mother.
what?
Both of them.
No. And that's where you lost me. It was over. It was like that makes what, and it just all downhill. And then they took, and I think that the reason is they were just trying to do too much in this movie. They were trying to take the death of Superman, another huge, independently gigantic, epic comic book storyline, and jam it together with the Frank Miller Batman storyline, which happened at completely different time arcs for the characters, completely different everything. And they're just like, oh man, Marvel's doing really good. And they're focused on one thing. You know, we can focus on 7. Let's do that. And it was too much. It was too much. And somebody said, man, did you know Superman's mom's name is the same as Batman's mom's name? And it was over. And it was like, it was the giant spider in Wild Wild West.
Thank God I never saw that movie.
What? Wow. You know, just that the movie. And from there, it just didn't get me. It was over for me. It was over. I enjoyed Batfleck. I enjoyed the anger he brought to the role. It was very, it was very good. I enjoyed, but then, and I like Henry Cavill as Superman. I am a big Henry Cavill fan. But this movie was so, it suffered from like the transition from second to third act, just
All right. Well, that was our number 9s. Why don't you start off on your number 8?
Oh, conveniently, my number 8 is your number 9, which is Wonder Woman 1984. The redeeming point in this movie for me was the invisible jet. I was really stoked on that, and they did it, and I was like, they're doing the invisible jet, which was cool.
That was cool. That was cool.
But you mentioned a lot of the good stuff from this movie, right? Like they did a really nice job of the 80s motif to it. They touched on a lot of the 80s stuff, and as a child of the mid to late 80s, it was nice to see all that stuff. And it was really cool in that regard. Again, the Chris Pine thing for me is lost me, and the Chitara at the end of it, I was like, really, you couldn't do something else? She's got all her fancy armor on, and you're just, rawr, I'm a cheetah. Like, really, you're a cheetah that quick? I don't think so. I think this
Apex
is
Predator.
ridiculous.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, whatever. Kristen Wiig was so good in that movie, and then they fucked it up.
Yeah,
they fucked it up. Also, I'd like to mention that the CGI in that movie was considerably better than Henry Cavill's upper lip. And that'll be a continuing theme throughout this podcast.
My number 8 is Aquaman. Aquaman. So I think I've said this for every movie I've said so far. Another movie that I rolled my eyes in the theater as things were going. I'm going to talk about some good stuff. It had the best intro song with the Cigarillo song. Badass. If any of you remember the old Prince of Persia, Sands of Time commercial back in the early 2000s, they used the same song. Really awesome song. And the reason I like that song, when I heard that, I was like, okay, I can get into this. Nicole Kidman, fantastic. I just love Nicole Kidman. She can do no wrong by me. Patrick Wilson and William Dafoe were great. And it was super sweet to see Underwater Drago, Dolph Lundgren, all jacked and shit, but another dude under the sea. But it was inconsistent with like the story with the DCEU movies, and so that was one of the things that like I just didn't understand. and I guess like it was kind of just like weak overall. Like I thought it was like very beautiful. I think it was James Wan that directed it, and it was a very, beautiful scene setting, almost like Black Panther and Wakanda. That's what that was like for Aquaman. So these are all really good things. It was just super underwhelming because Amber Heard's character was weak. The wig was even weaker. Um, Jason Momoa all of a sudden went from like cool bro to the bro you don't want to hang out with on occasion because he's just too much sometimes. So I was like, I was kind of Jason Momoa out on this one. Um, but yeah, it just was probably exactly where it was supposed to be in terms of like how it's going to wow me. There's not much else I can say. It's not horrible, but it's also not a top tier movie.
Okay. Okay. I'll save my comments for when it comes up for me.
Okay.
But I respect that. I respect your opinion. Um, and when it comes to number 7, in my opinion, it is the Suicide Squad, the James Gunn adaptation of the Suicide Squad. And while you look shocked, I'm going to tell you a few things about this, right? Prior to this movie, James Gunn went back to back on some of the absolute best ragtag team up movies ever. He
Agreed.
balanced those movies. They had great soundtracks, great stories, and everything. And this movie was so unbalanced, had terrible music, the worst music. It's like, oh, we don't have a music budget. Just grab bullshit and put it in here. So bad, so terrible. And it was a Peacemaker movie. It wasn't a Suicide Squad movie. It was Peacemaker featuring Harley Quinn, which they did so they could launch the Peacemaker show on HBO Max, which I've not taken in. I'm going to wait to binge the whole thing. John Cena was a revelation in the part. I liked John Cena. I thought he was hilarious, but
could you see him?
yeah, I could see him the whole movie.
Okay.
I could see him the whole
Just
movie.
making sure.
But to the drop in of Idris Elba for no reason. Like, what was the point of that? You couldn't get Will Smith back, so you needed a token guy to come in and do a thing. You didn't need him. Like, there were so many things that they did that were like, ugh. It just didn't work for me. I loved the twist at the beginning where they kill them all. I was like, that's kind of awesome. I liked the glowing orb. I can't remember his name.
Polka Dot Man.
I loved Polka Dot Man. I was like, oh, this is great. They're gonna go there. They're gonna go there, just like Lego Batman did, which was an amazing movie, by the way. And if you don't like that movie, Danny, you need to look at The Man in the Mirror. But I feel like this movie was so hyped and so meh. Like worst James Gunn movie that I can think of.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. I just expected so much more from this. Much like Batman versus Superman, where I'm like, oh my God, they're going to do the thing. He was going to do the thing, but he took, you're following up on a very serious, very gritty Suicide Squad movie in the first one, and you're going, the Suicide Squad. I just didn't have it. It didn't do it for me. I couldn't get there. The Weasel, hilarious. The fact that he was still alive, also hilarious. But it didn't. No. The thing about DC and the differentiation from Marvel, in my opinion, is that DC is dirty and gritty and more real. And this wasn't that. This was outside of what I consider to be the canonical DC. Though I will say the second best Harley interaction, because she was kind of making jokes about the Joker, not like feeling bad sitting on her couch binge eating because of the Joker. Like she needed a different kind of therapy in this movie. So I didn't mind that part of it.
I feel like we're just going to be all over on this place. Like I'm
Oh,
not,
we are, and I love it.
but we're not going to be able to talk about like the stuff that we really liked or really like go at contention because I'm holding back right now because obviously my movie's further up on this list.
Hmm.
So I don't. All right. So I'm hoping we have some level playing ground on
Do
this
you
on
have
the
do
next
you want to
couple.
talk about anything that I said that you just completely disagree with? Do you want to go there now, or do you want to go there later, Dan?
I'll
Because it
go
feels
there
like you got a lot
later.
on
Just
a
just
lot on your
you'll
chest.
have to remind me of why you're.
That's
We'll
fine.
debate. We'll debate. Um. All right. So that was your number seven.
That's my number 7.
All
What's
right.
your
So
number
mine
6?
my number seven is the Justice League Snyder cut.
Okay.
Justice League Snyder cut. Too damn long. So I watched it all in one sitting, and I just don't understand the breaking up of the into the different parts. You know why like other movies break it up into different parts because they're making them into different movies. And a lot of this stuff to me didn't really flow. Beautiful. I thought cinematically and thematically it was way better. The story better than Joss Whedon's Justice League, but too damn long. Visually fantastic, um, but some things that kind of like stood out for me is the Flash is a creepy weirdo. I mean, before he was just a nerd, right? Like kind of like a nerd loser. But in this one, that whole scene where he fucking runs out of his shoes as his shoes explode off because he's so fast. And then he does like this rapist serial killer vibe stare at the girl who's flying out of the car. Too much. And it made me dislike his character. And so it was just like, wow, this guy's like a really weird loner creep. Wherein Joss Whedon's Justice League, the guy was funny. He was a lovable nerd type guy, and he was just like, yeah, he just needs friends. But his scenes were way funnier. Here, it's like you have a little bit of the humor, you still have a little bit of quirkiness, but there's a fine line between quirkiness and being a creep. He borderlined on a creep for me. So when you take my favorite character in the previous movie that I didn't really like and then make him worse, that's a problem. Now it is better than the Joss Whedon Justice League as a whole, but not that much better. Not that much better. And the Snyder cut shouldn't have been called the Snyder cut because I don't think he cut anything. I think everything that he shot, he just put on for the Snyder cut. So that's my number seven.
My number 6 is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Um, I disagree. I like the length. I don't mind it. I don't mind the extra meat because I felt like the first Justice League or the Whedon League was just too spotty. It didn't give even backstory to all characters. You were meeting both the Flash and Aquaman for the first time, so we needed a little bit more for those
Did you
people
need
not.
4 hours more? Did you
The
like?
fact that they added more dark seed to it, they took it to that next level. They didn't hold any of the characters back. Like that's what happened with Whedon. Is like, oh no, just one baddie, one baddie. We want more baddies for later. No, let them all out. Let them interact. Show the Thanos in this universe, which is Darkseid, right? Get there with it. And I thought that there was just so much more exposition and backstory and context to why. In the first one, it was like, look at all the things and look at the guy's horny head. We're going. Where this, like, actually told you that there was somebody else behind it. Like it wasn't just a single person that we defeated and that was it. It just got it. It made Cyborg's character. Um, it gave him more for
Yeah,
me. It gave him a ton more, and it just brought a lot more in it. I love the cinematic nature of it. Um, I'm a sucker for old school things like placards and chapters and that kind of thing, I'm like, okay, this is getting to be artistic, not just a comic book movie. And I appreciate the art side of it, which is why it's ranked a little bit higher for me. Obviously, there are 5 movies ahead of it out of 11, so it's a mid grade for me. But I enjoyed the Snyder Cut so much more than Justice League, and I was in it. I was in it. It's one of those movies that it takes a while to watch, right? Because it's of that epic length in nature, right? But I feel like every watch it gets a little bit better.
I can't watch it more than once. I feel like that's just too much time. Too much time dedicated to a movie as a whole isn't even that good.
I thought just the scenes with Superman were so much better in
They
this.
were,
It
they
was
were.
the whole storyline was better. The length, I understand what you're saying. I
That's the
understand what you're
main.
saying, but
That's
then
the
split
main
it
reason
into
why
2
it's so long.
movies. The reason that they allowed it to release at this length is because it was not going to theaters. It was only going to streaming, right? There's some context to why it's this long. If they would have let him do what he wanted, he probably would have split it up a little bit, right? Like this example is extra nerdy, right? And kind of childish. But if you think about the last 2 Harry Potter movies, you could have put them side by side and they'd be just as long as the Snyder Cut, right? The Deathly Hallows movies. And if you
Sure.
watch those Deathly Hallow movies back to back like that, you'd be like, oh, this is too long. But really, they had all the story that you needed. And I feel like this had the story you needed.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda, though.
But
Just
it's
like
context. It's context. They fired the guy and they didn't let him release the whole thing. The only reason they let him do this is because they needed subscribers for HBO Go. And they're like, you know what? Just do it. Everybody's pissed at us because we hired this guy that talks shit to Gal Gadot. So do your thing and we'll figure it out. We'll put it out there. And we're erasing the Snyderverse in general. We're breaking up the DCEU, because the Flash movie is going to be the last thing that they do that ties into the DCEU. They're doing a second Shazam, but that one is loosely associated from my understanding. This Batman movie that's coming out is not associated with at all. They're doing like the one-offs, like Joker. Joker's not on this list because it's not a DCEU movie.
right, right.
So it's a
Zack,
mea culpa by Warner Brothers. So don't blame Snyder for Warner Brothers being bitches.
I'm not blaming him. I'm blaming the fact that it's 4+ hours long.
Is it 4?
I believe so. 4 hours and 2 minutes. And
Hmm.
like I just so you know, I've never watched any of those Lord of the Rings movies. The only thing that I know from those movies is
But they're
Randall
long.
and Clerks 2. Yeah, Randall and Clerks 2, his interpretation of the movies where they're
Mm-hmm.
just like walking and like there's like so many different endings in one of the movies too. That's kind of what I thought about like the Justice League is like, okay, it's gonna end here. No, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna add in this other sequence here. Oh, by the
I
way, we're gonna
wasn't mad
throw in
about it
Marvin the Martian, or I'm sorry, Martian Manhunter. I'm thinking of a little Looney Tunes character. We're gonna add him in too. He looked cool. Don't get me wrong.
he looked really cool.
He was cool. And then we're gonna go into the nightmare dream sequence, and doesn't make sense to anything else, and we're never gonna see anything else about it. Like, why even put that in the movie?
Because
I
he
just don't
could.
understand.
Because he could. Again, there's
That's
so much context around a director with bad blood and a company who's just begging him to do a thing to try and do fan service. So, it didn't go through screen testing. Nobody looked at it. It was simply a director's cut. And normally director's cuts are saved for DVDs and they're not like they're only watched by the people who are really into it. So this is, you got to remember, like a bit of a fan service movie altogether, right?
sure.
And you got to give it a little slack because of that, because where the rest of the movies are trimmed for tightness and release, this was just like they're streaming, who cares?
Back to your whole thing about you appreciate the art aspect of it. This is a director flexing his artist director ish cock, because this it's kind of like some bullshit. Like, I'm gonna slow mo something. Like, this could be done in 10 seconds. I'm gonna stretch this bitch out to 45.
The slow-mo and the lens flare was a lot, right? They did it a lot.
So many
It was like, hey
times.
JJ, I could do this twice as much as you and get away with it,
It was like,
right?
like Michael Bay is also one of those guys who like focuses on like the 360 slow mo shots. He's like, I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna turn it up to 11, and I'm gonna throw in some like
But
cool colors and shit.
can you imagine watching that in IMAX? Like that big giant turn? It would have been so cool.
Sure, what it would be.
If we get 20 subscribers, I will do that.
Okay,
Because
sounds
right
good.
now we're not even live. So whatever.
Yeah. Hey,
If
we
there's
will
a
be.
subscriber number, or if one person comments, do the Snyder Cut thing, then we know they listened all the way to this episode, and we'll do a watch along.
We will give the fans what the fans want.
Yes,
So,
give them what they want.
all right. So
Our
going
cut of the Snyder
into,
Cut.
so that was your number 6, right?
Yeah, that was
All
my number
right.
6.
Number 6 for me is the Man of Steel. Good stuff. Russell Crowe is the shit. He is a badass Jarrell. Like before you had fat gray Marlon Brando as Superman's dad. Here you've got Superman's dad. Like this guy's a badass, and he was riding his little space dragon or whatever the fuck it was, and Krypton was awesome. That was one of the big takeaways for me. Is like I left the theater. Actually, no, I was in the theater thinking to myself, I'm like, this is the best possible vision of Krypton. I'm not a big Superman fan. I don't know what it's like in the comics, if it's similar to that, if they took a lot of the thematic stuff from that or examples, but super into it. And I love the fact that it was like a futuristic type, like a true futuristic in my head, like where the old Christopher Reeves Superman was just like this is just a bunch of white people standing around in white robes with like crystals. Here was like, okay, this is like this advanced civilization. And there was purpose for their civilization too. They had it really broken down methodical for each house and each character and everything. Um Shitty final battle was it was just too much. I love me some CGI battles every now and then, but it was just too much. You're gonna fucking fly into buildings, into cornfields, into IHOP. Poor guy with IHOP. What was the name of gosh, what was the ginger's name in that? It was like his best friend in Smallville, but then they turned him into a white fat ginger kid. But oh my god. Yeah, so anyways, he worked at like an IHOP, and they fucked up his IHOP, and poor guy. But you know, when it comes to like those CGI battles, I'm willing to forgive if there's not like an exorbitant amount of property damage. It just seemed like annoying, and like I totally understand why Batman was pissed off because he fucked up a lot of shit in that battle. Um, and you know what? Here's another controversial take for all you Superman fans out there, but I was okay with Superman snapping necks and cashing checks. Snapping Zod's neck, I'm all for it. Perfect. Loved it. And he was remorseful afterwards, so I'm okay with it. He didn't want to do it, but he did it. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, that was the only part of the movie that I didn't like. Is I was like, well, how you can do that? But Zod didn't just snap his neck. This is weird.
I mean, I'm sure they were trying to beat, they were literally trying to throw each other into buildings, into cornfields, and having a nice wrestle. But
Yeah. No,
number 6.
I have no qualms with any of your take on that movie. I will save my highlights for when it hits for me. But I dug it. I dug it as well.
Go on for your number 5, sir.
My number 5 is Suicide Squad, the first version.
You should add 6 to that.
No, my friend. No. I think that it had such a grit to it that I was just a huge fan of. It had Go ahead.
You say that there's grit in that movie, which is PG-13, compared to the Suicide Squad with James Gunn, where there's like cold-blooded murder and
There's Tarantino level blood in that movie. It's campy, not no.
sure it's campy and to certain things, but there's like Rick Flag's death was legit.
Hmm. I just think that the visual style of the movie was what I wanted from a DC movie. It was very Batman-y. It looked like it lived in Gotham in that regard, right? It was very of the Batman feel of DC visual styles. It introduced us to Harley in a way that I was a big fan of, right? They didn't make her weak, they made her strong, which is what she should be as a character. And unlike you, I dug the soundtrack. I love it
Oh,
when you give me some jams in a movie. I
dude,
love it. It was
I was
Armageddon level soundtrack.
that was gonna be my
Armageddon
next
level soundtrack.
that was gonna be my next question to you. Like, did you feel like you were at the MTV Music Awards? Because that's exactly what it was. Like that's oh man.
Dude,
Let's
what
just
was
get the top 20 list of songs, put it in a fucking movie. It doesn't matter if it fits with the movie. Here you go.
I think that if you've got all these young actors in it, you got your Cara Delevingne or whatever how you say her name, right? You
That's
got to
you
have
got it.
you got to have the right tunes to go with it. I dug that. I bought the soundtrack to that movie. That's how much I enjoy it. I own it digitally because it was just full of some jams. So I was a big fan of the Suicide Squad, just the soundtrack to it, and it just worked for me. Will Smith, I felt like he didn't want to be there for some of it, but I liked the interaction with his kid, the bargaining with Batman, all that really, really worked for me. I didn't mind him. I didn't think he was trying to scene steal that much. I loved Viola Davis. She is such a bad motherfucker in this movie, right? Like she is the female Samuel L. Jackson in this movie. Um, and I unlike the James Gunn version where they just killed everybody in a hilarious way and it was like, look, everybody's dead. I liked that they killed a couple of them just like, ooh, you're dead. Right. I did
Who were the
enjoy that.
couple? I know Slipknot was like the one right off the bat because
Yeah.
you knew he was gonna die because you didn't see him in any trailer.
Yeah. Yeah. Him and the didn't they kill the boomerang dude?
No,
But he was out of it pretty quick.
no, Captain Boomerang was in the Suicide Squad, so you know
Yeah.
it's what's his name? Fireboy.
Yeah, Fireboy. That
Santos
was
Locos. What was his
yeah.
name? What's his name in it? I really don't know.
I don't either.
Okay, cool.
It's all good. But that was I liked that. And I thought they did a good I liked the character development pre-launch. I liked the way that they consistently set up each character. Like I enjoyed that. Okay, we're gonna give you a little backstory to let you and then bring them all together and see what this dynamic looked like. I like that they gave you Killer Croc, who you never thought you'd see in a movie. Who, if you
I
look at Killer Croc in this movie versus versus the lizard in No Way Home, I mean, the CGI was so much, it was just meaner looking, right? It was solid. So I was a fan. And again, it was gritty and they were independent in that way. And it was the Harley Quinn that I wanted to see. Harley won me in this movie. Margot won me in this movie.
so Killer Croc. Um, he was actually my first first Batman comic that I ever got. I think it was like Batman 419. I'm not sure if it was his first appearance, but Killer Croc is introduced in the comic and he fights Bane, and Bane fucks him up like royally. And I was like pretty excited to see him in there, but then I was like, like he's a badass, but just it didn't hit my nostalgia as a kid. And so the funny thing is, I want to bring this up since it's so high on your list because that's number 5, right? So
Mm-hmm.
top half of the list. That movie, and I'm not, live or die by Rotten Tomatoes, but 26% rotten on that's like the rating on Rotten
Hmm.
Tomatoes. So it's funny that's there's some other movies that are just like that for my picks, but just want to throw it in there just because it goes into my argument. So 26% rotten on Suicide Squad, whereas the Suicide Squad 90% fresh. Just saying.
I think that the Suicide Squad not going to age well. It just it didn't for me. I liked that they had to go it was gritty and I loved it. I was a big fan.
Suicide David Ayer's Suicide Squad didn't age because I watched it once and never wanted to watch it again.
Mm.
Although I did watch it again for this.
I think that's a theme across most of the DCEU movies for us.
It's funny. Okay, so let's talk
I've
about how
watched
many
this
times
movie
we actually
multiple times though.
did
Like
you
I will
really?
watch this movie. Yeah. Yeah.
What was your favorite scene?
I liked all the intros. Like that introducing the characters going through their like day, how they were recruited, how they pulled them out. Like that was it for me. I loved that. And then it just, moved in the end battle scene was a little much for me. The sorceress as a character.
Yeah.
But I like that they took the time to give you a little bit more about the characters and just didn't jam them into there.
Funny enough, when I rewatched it today, I didn't realize that David Harbour was in it. So not only was he Red Guardian, but he was whoever the hell he was in Suicide Squad. Interesting tidbit. That's it. That's all I got.
And it's not a terrible movie. And you know me, I like bad movies sometimes. It's just a thing. It's something that people have to deal with about me. I'm flawed.
It totally is a terrible movie, but all right. That'll be my last shot taken at that particular film.
Mm.
So my number
Not
five.
exactly a bullseye.
Well, okay, hold on. Before I go on, so the another thing that kind of irked me was dead shots. Like it was cool, but the the one little bullet hole in each of the targets where it's like he perfectly got them in the one bullet hole. I was like, I get it. You're good at shooting guns. All right.
It's a comic book movie.
I know, but it's almost like it goes into my whole reason of like, all right, Will Smith wants to be a badass, and they're trying to make this character like a badass. We get it. He shoots guns really good. I don't know, man.
Were you mad about Skanky Harley?
Yeah, yeah, I was actually.
Because they did show her other outfit in the bag that she was going
Yeah, no, that
through.
was cool. That was cool.
I was
But
disappointed that she had a bat, not a mallet. But
I
either way,
was I was more pissed off and irked about her inconsistent accent.
I didn't even notice it. Maybe because I was trying to ignore Will Smith. But
Okay. All right. So going on to my number five. Um, I'm going to start off with the Rotten Tomatoes score with 79% fresh, and that's Birds of Prey. So my number five is Birds of Prey.
bleh,
Well,
bleh.
you know what? So Ewan McGregor, fan freaking tastic. He was so fun, so refreshing as like just this vile motherfucker, but like still kind of like he had like not all bad tendencies. So it was just an entertaining character overall. It was a fun movie. That's like the big difference about some of the other DCEU movies, that it was fun, legitimately fun. Um, the Huntress, best character, hands down. Huntress was the best character overall. She was just like this. She wants to be this badass, and she is, but she's just kind of like really awkward. Um, Actress is Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She was also in another movie, action movie called Kate. It's on Netflix. If you liked her in this, you'd probably like her in that movie as well too. It was really cool, and she will be in the Ahsoka TV show, so another tie-in. So pretty awesome there. But um, yeah, I had fun with the characters, and I'm okay with Spice Worlds 2.0 in the DCEU. Like girls just want to have fun and kick ass, and they definitely kick ass. The only one that I was not a huge fan of is Rosie Perez. Um, and part of that is because I just always hear the Rosie Perez from White Men Can't Jump. It's like, Billy, get me a glass of water. Like
I was gonna
it
say
just
favorite Rosie Perez movie, definitely White Men Can't Jump.
it's like the only movie
Yeah,
that I
the
ever
only
remember seeing her.
tolerable Rosie Perez movie. Um, it just this movie was so bad that I didn't even appreciate Ewan McGregor, who I love for many other reasons that are Lucasfilm related. I was just like, can this be over?
It was
So
just a fun movie though, because like the girls constantly kicked ass. So one of the things about that is like, like for a female led movie where it's like, okay, they're gonna kick ass, and there's gonna be like this long break of like comedic sisterhood bonding. Like there was the comedic sisterhood bonding while kicking ass, and that like the pacing I thought was fine. Like it was good and consistent across the board. Like it's not gonna win any, you know, Academy Awards, but at the same time, it remained consistent. Like I knew what I was getting within the first 5 minutes of the movie, and I was cool with it. I'm like, all right, strap in. R rating too, so it had language. So that kind of adds into the whole adult dynamic of it as well too. So it's not like the squeaky clean DCEU Spice World version, as you would say. Yeah, no, there's like these badass bitches that are gonna take out a bunch of thugs with guns, weapons, whatever way that they can, and a little kid's gonna tag along too. So not only was it like, like adventures in babysitting, but it was like hardcore. I'm gonna swear, I'm gonna kill all these people. I was along for the ride and I enjoyed it. It was fun.
how could you compare Adventures in Babysitting to this?
True story. I never even saw that
Whole
movie, so it's
whole
just I
different
wanted to
level
say
of
it.
great movie with Elizabeth Shue. How dare
Never
you?
saw it.
How dare you? Um, yeah, no. Disagree. Agree to disagree. Or
It's
disagree and disagree.
79% fresh.
Mm,
So
yeah, yeah, no, no. Those are frozen tomatoes, and that's why they're still fresh because of the ice and my cold heart towards this movie.
by the way, I love to bring up my hypocrisy on things, and on previous episodes. I'm sure a lot of people have noticed it as well too. But I'm not even a big fan of Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of times I'll see a Rotten Tomatoes rating. I was like, bullshit. Like I enjoyed that movie. It was awesome. So yeah, the hypocrisy is strong with this one.
Hey, same. You're gonna love it because am I on number four now?
You're on number 4.
I'm on number four. My number four was Shazam.
Me too.
And all I have to say about this movie, it was a surprise and a good one because I always thought the comic character was kind of dumb, just dumb.
Face value, it is kind of dumb, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's just a
but
kid.
but Zach Levi in this movie, wow, loved it. Just so much loved it.
It was fun because like he did exactly what any kid would do if he had those powers. Like the whole testing, like, oh, I didn't even realize I had power. Like, I better test this shit out. And so yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I thought incorporating the family was really cool too. I never saw the read the comics or saw any of the cartoons or anything like that with him. Is that legit? Like, does he have like a family full of orphans and shit?
I have no idea. I didn't read those comics either because they were lame. But um, yeah, no, I dug this. This is an actor that he was in some Marvel movies, right? He was in the
He was in
Thor.
Thor. Yep.
He was in Dark World and Ragnarok for a minute.
They killed him off
Yeah,
quick in Ragnarok.
real quick. But I mean, this is a guy that was like the voice of Flynn Rider in Untangled. Like I did not see him in the superhero like role per se. Um, and holy cow, it was so great.
His suit though was kind of ridiculous, wasn't it?
I was okay with it. I didn't mind the suit at all. It was, It was whatever. The opening of the movie with the back, the detail and the why. Again, movies that give me context about characters that I obviously give no shits about and have never heard of. Like I've heard of them, right? But didn't follow the story, make the story more enjoyable to me. So that's one of the things I liked about the movie is it gave context to the power and why the other people were trying to get at it. And I really did enjoy this movie in general. I thought Mark Strong did a strong job of being the bad guy in it, and
He's such a good actor.
he's I like him in some things, I don't like him in others, so but in general in this movie I thought he was really good and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. I mean it's funny though, like for that movie, I was looking for critiques, but I couldn't really give any in the fact that, maybe from, I'm not that big of a Shazam comic nerd to where like I knew better. Maybe there's someone that, that's a super fan that's like, well, this is they messed up this. Like his family didn't have X amount of members or whatever it is. Like I don't know.
Yeah, where I
But
can like judge the Batman storylines and things like that, I can't judge the Shazam lines, right? The only other Shazam I'm aware of is a really bad Shaq movie. That you want to look up the Rotten Tomatoes on that, I bet it's super low. Um,
so I have to correct you on this one. It's Kazam, and he's the basketball playing genie.
Either way, it was terrible. It was so bad.
Still couldn't hit free throws.
No, no. But this was good. The tie-in at the end where they brought the top half of or the bottom half of Henry Cavill into it, I was just like, oh, really? That's great.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed it wholeheartedly. And again, it was a fun movie. It's at 4 for me because I think that the three I have above it are just resonate a little bit more for me. Their characters I enjoy more. But
Yeah.
it very much was a good movie.
Do you think we were too easy on that movie? Like because we don't know as much about it that we like, yeah, it's good. It's up
When you
there
go
because it
in
was.
with no expectations, you're bound to be, in a happy way, right? And I think that, the other movies in there that were disappointing because, our hopes were up. So it's a possibility that it squeaked through on, oh, what a nice surprise. I expected this to be garbage. I didn't see it in the theater.
Neither did I. I saw it well after like it came out on
Well,
HBO Max.
but I was like, oh man, this was good.
Yeah, I never felt the need to be like, oh god, I gotta check that movie out. I was like, meh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Num- Number
Agreed.
three,
Number 3, you want me to go or you to go?
I will go because I want to I want to plant my flag here. Number three for me is Batman v Superman. So the reasoning as to why I thought that this should be top three is the fact that this is the first time that Batman and Superman are on screen together, if I'm not mistaken, going head to head, and expectations were high. So, me being a casual DC fan, I just thought it was like super cool that you had, and who, in my opinion, is the best Superman with Henry Cavill. I know there's a lot of people that bash him with his acting and all that stuff, but um, Henry Cavill, he'll be my Superman pick. Just I think he's the best overall. Um, and then Batman, like I just thought Affleck was the best possible Batman. Grizzled. You had the voice modulator, which made sense. Instead of just talking like this, I'm gonna disguise my voice talking like this. And like, no, you got a computer modulated voice, so it made sense. But the fact that those two were actually fighting, and Batman actually used, the smarts, all the. I hate it when like you're reading like message boards or like Facebook comments of like, with prep, Batman could beat anybody. shut the fuck up. Like Batman can't beat shit. He has no superpowers. But here he did some research and it actually paid off to where it's like he could have killed Superman and he would have killed Superman if he didn't call out for his mom. So
And
there is a
that is
downside.
where we lose.
But you know what?
He Tony Starked it up. He did his pull-ups. He was doing his training.
But keep in mind, so not only was Batman and Superman like the two titans of DC on screen for the first time ever, they introduced Wonder Woman in the coolest possible way. She drops into battle, and I can't remember if she had her little gauntlets up or if it was her shield, and then pops into her theme music, and I was like, fuck yeah, man. Like Wonder Woman's a badass. Like this is I was never really a Wonder Woman fan or really followed Wonder Woman, but after that, I'm like, okay, I want to go check out Wonder Woman now because like if she's this much of a badass, I'm in. And it looked like she was having fun while she was fighting. She gets clocked, knocks back into a boulder, and she like gives a smirk and like ready to pop right into battle. And like that added a fun dynamic to a typical third act CGI battle fest. I thought she brought some very cool, very cool dynamic, and that whole interaction with her and Batman and Superman, or Batman and Superman, where he's like, "She with you? I thought she was with you." It's like that's just badass. And then these three take the abnormously huge Doomsday on, which was awful. He shouldn't have been that big, but
Well, it's the I'm going to use the Batman tech versus the Superman tech. Again, it's the fucking spider in Wild Wild West to me. So you're not going to convince me otherwise, but I respect your opinion and do enjoy seeing, multiple superheroes on the screen.
were
Though
you
my top
not
three are all independent movies.
were you not like super excited like when Wonder Woman's music hit right when she popped in? Like were you not like, hell yeah, like go
It
kick
was
some ass?
post Martha.
So were you like just checked out? You're just like,
I don't say I was checked out. I mean, I think Gal Gadot was great, and I was a little, to be honest with you, I was a little miffed that they didn't give you more backstory. It felt rushed to bring her in to
yeah,
that storyline because she wasn't in either storyline,
right.
either of the two major storylines. Like, oh, let's jam a Wonder Woman into this. So where you're talking about the Snyderverse or Justice League, like, hey, we're gonna jam more in. This one was the ultimate jam job. And that's why I can't put it that high on my list,
I
man.
wouldn't say it was worse than Justice League.
Oh,
Justice League was
absolutely.
really shoehorned in,
Well,
but
not not the original, not the Whedon Justice League. I agree. It's better.
okay.
We both have it ranked above the Whedon Justice League, but I think that Wonder Woman in this gets a disservice for the intro and the jam job. Though it did make a bunch of people go see the Wonder Woman movie,
Yeah, but
which
wasn't
I
it
think a bunch of people would have seen anyway.
I think it was super cool though that they gave just a tease of Aquaman, Cyborg, and Flash in the movie as well too. Just like like when they click on the little video on the
Yeah.
computer.
Well,
Like I thought that was
they
cool.
did what they did what they did. They did what they did at the end of, was it Iron Man, where he had the files of everybody?
Oh, they didn't. I thought they actually executed it better than
Then
that
Marvel.
because yeah,
Well,
Marvel
Marvel.
did actually like a piss poor job of doing that. Like you could view it as like DC was like, oh, that was shoehorning in because like, oh, I'm just gonna click on a computer file and I see all these metahumans. Like, no, it's badass in my opinion. Like, whereas Marvel,
Mhm.
which we can talk about another episode, but just because we're talking about that now, is at the end of the Incredible Hulk. Iron Man goes to General Ross at the end, and like we're putting a team together, and that it's alluding to somebody, right? But it's
I
not
think that,
clear as to who they're alluding
yeah.
to.
Well, I think that when you look at those Marvel movies, though, they were in, and we could talk about this in another episode. I think that we've already got kind of thoughts about, but they didn't know that they were going to get the budget for another movie. They didn't know that it was going to take off. DC was committed in this movie, and they actually drew back from their commitment because of how bad Justice League was. But um, yeah, Batman versus Superman better than Justice League.
What's your number three?
Aquaman.
I don't.
Aquaman. You didn't mention one actor that I was so stoked was his dad. It was Tamora Morrison. I'm a huge Tamora Morrison fan. Pre Book of Boba Fett, just in general, I was like, "Oh
What
hell yeah,
other
that is
what other
so
movies?
perfect." Yeah, no, you can get Django in there, but in general, right? I'm like, "Hell yeah!" Tamora Morrison and Nicole Kidman made Aquaman. I thought that this was. I enjoyed this because it was the retconning of a character, or the better version of a character that honestly, in some of my favorite introductions to DC, like Super Friends, was like the lamest ass white ass wearing orange character you ever did see, right?
But
He was
didn't it bother you
super.
that it was inconsistent with like how they brought him in? Like they talked about it. It's like, well, he had a trident. Like, why the fuck are they giving him another trident or whatever?
I don't care about the damn tridents. I really didn't give two shits about that. Like I enjoy the story behind it. I liked the way that they shot it. I thought the cinematic, when you're gonna try and shoot an underwater movie, you're either gonna do it or it's gonna look fucked. This was good. They balanced the bubble talk versus the not bubble talk. I know that that's like a lame sounding thing, but just in general, the way that they did it, you got Willem Dafoe to just blend into this movie seamlessly, right? And just not steal too much. He is such a good actor. Love me some Willem Dafoe. But you got that into there. Amber Heard was the weak point, obviously, right? We all can agree with that. But just in general, I thought the movie was sound. It was good. I like the way that he played the character. I like Jason and the way that he, was like an unwilling hero when they had to talk through that portion of it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And when he was just like, I'm just gonna roar through it, and then that didn't work, and he had to actually, like, spend some time. I didn't mind the 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 underwater finding the trident portion of, like, there's a little bit of National Treasure in it. Like, I was okay with that, but I liked that they actually took and for DC, doing a non-Superman or Batman movie is a stretch for them. So I loved they took a character that was usually an also ran in most of their biggest things and actually gave him, like, okay. It was so good they're giving it a sequel, and I will see the sequel for sure.
What about Black Manta? What are your thoughts on?
I like that they gave a backstory as he adopted his dad's moniker, and there was a reason why he was mad.
All right, but yeah, so that's your number three. Um, I'm not super mad at that. I don't completely disagree. Uh, Even though my pick for Aquaman was at number eight, but I'm okay with it. I'm fine.
It's just because
No,
we're friends. We don't want to beat each other up too much.
dude, these are the DCEU movies. I will beat the shit out of these movies any day of the week. But I don't care about them. I think that's the big thing. It's like I don't.
I wouldn't say I don't care. I'll talk about any movie, and I enjoyed them, but they're not Marvel. They're not like that deep in the heart thing. I think I'm more mad at the ones I'm mad at because they didn't meet my DC expectations.
So out of all the movies that you've seen, how many of them have you watched more than once?
Most of them.
Most of them, really.
I I watch way too many movies, Dan. And when I used to travel a bunch for work before
I
COVID, I
just
would watch a bunch of movies over.
I just don't understand why you would watch some of these more than once. My number two is The Suicide Squad.
How many times have
So
you watched that?
twice, twice, and funny, still funny. I still laugh out loud. I am still into the campiness, as you would call it, but that's kind of like what the whole James Gunn was going for, like that whole 1970s action vibe, where it is kind of ridiculous. And so I was okay with it. The only thing that I was like not 100% thrilled about, which it looked cinematically beautiful, was that scene when Harley Quinn goes like ape shit, and she was like, she's killing everyone, and then there's like flowers bursting in the background and stuff. I'm like, that's a little too much. But yeah, other than that, like I really did enjoy the movie. Like Polka Dot Man, I can't pronounce the guy's name, David Dashmond or whatever,
Hmm.
but fantastic, so good. And I thought his, as much as his character wasn't really talked about as much, um, based on his performance, you could get like a deeper understanding of the character. This
Hmm.
guy has this guy has mommy issues, and it's just fucking hilarious. And the fact that he dies a hero's death, and he's so stoked about being a hero, but just as quick as he's reveling in his new hero stardom, killed just right then and there. And so I like that type of thing because I think I've said this before too, where it's like I kind of like the movies where the good guys don't have an easy win, or even like like it's just a flat out downer. So I kind of like that stuff. I was really shocked at Rick Flag dying. I thought for sure that like, oh, they're not going to kill him. There's no freaking way. And so I like it when a movie shocks me. And within the first 10 minutes of the movie, and like the entire team is almost just executed and ambushed, um, I loved it. But at the same time, it was like, oh man, like, so who's left, who's it had me like kind of guessing, like, all right, so I mean, I saw the trailers, but at the same time, like, so where do we go from here? And I like the fact that James Gunn was able to tell the story. It's like, okay, this was the plan all along. This team was going to get effed up, but we had this other team ready to roll. So I liked it. It was a not a completely linear story in the sense that like, okay, it's going to be a straight line, that this is, you're going to go from point A to point B. Like, you're all about the hero's journey. While here, I like the fact that it's going to be a journey for those characters, but we don't know where that journey is going to take them. And the fact that they messed up the what was it, at the rendezvous point, where they just go in guns blazing, they just slaughter the people, and it's like, oh, whoops, yeah, we were actually okay. We should have kept them alive or whatever. But I love that type of stuff where it's like not everything goes to plan, and James Gunn takes a realistic look at it, and he's able to, as realistic as you can get with a superhero movie. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it broke the mold. That's one thing that DC had gotten better at, and Birds of Prey actually broke the mold as well too, with the R rating and taking it thematically in a different direction. Shazam as well too. So I give those movies extra points for it, and I enjoyed it. Just had fun. It's like these movies are there to have fun, and I had exactly that. I had fun.
I'm not going to argue with you. I just didn't enjoy the mold breaking as much as you did. I'm used to this dark and gritty DC. I keep using that same word, gritty, because that's how it feels right to me when I read through the DC comic world. But I don't think it was a poor movie. I just didn't it didn't meet my high expectations from James Gunn and from what you'd expect from Suicide Squad, the way it exists for me. So I'm going to transition to a movie that we already talked about for my number two. Um, I've got a feeling that our number ones are going to be the same again. But my number two was Man of Steel. I loved this as a return to Superman that was good. To your point, like, you got Jor-El that worked. You got a really good Jonathan Kent
Yeah,
in Kevin Costner. Like, they brought some heavyweights out to this. I loved that they used that they got Perry White into it, and it was it was Morpheus. Why I can't lose Lawrence Fishburne. I thought he was very good. I just dug that they made it, kind of real in that regard. And the Lois and the relationship was solid, but just that they got the whereas so many Batman movies retell the killing of Bruce Wayne's parents and that whole thing. This is one of the first times that you get Superman's backstory in a film. I know Smallville's been there. I know that they did a bunch of stuff with but this is like on film. It's there. It's great. I grew up on the original Superman with with Reeves, and he was a great Superman. But this was just a different time. It was a different time in superhero movies. This was everything you wanted a Superman movie to be, in my opinion. I was a little the at first the deviation from the original suit, without the underwear on the outside bugged me, but I thought Henry Cavill, this is like the role he was born to play.
Yeah.
I love Henry Cavill in this movie. I hope he never stops playing Superman because it's going to be Henry Cavill as Superman to me is the same as Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Like, I can't picture any other actor there. I have no problem with different people playing Batman. Never bothered me, right? Michael Keaton's still my favorite Batman. But super excited to see him in the Flash. BT Dub, super excited. Like, beside myself excited. Might be the DC movie I'm most excited for since I was excited about Batman versus Superman and then disappointed. So that movie might suck for me. But in general, like, really excited. Hope that he continues to play Superman if they do more Superman, because I can't think of anybody else to do it. I can't. Like, they tried in that Brandon Routh Superman movie.
He was a dead ringer for Christopher Reeve.
He was. I actually liked that movie. I love that Kevin Spacey was in it. You can't put Kevin Spacey in a movie anymore.
Yeah.
Because
it was an
obviously
alright movie.
Kevin Spacey is a piece of shit apparently. But in general, this just worked for me. Amy Adams is so good in everything she does, from The Office to this. But
I had a problem with her just because I felt like in my head and from all the iterations, I expect Lois Lane to not only just be like a force to be reckoned with, just from a personality point of view, but also from a stature point of view. And Amy Adams is like super tiny. I still picture her being the candy striper in Catch Me If You Can that marries Leonardo
yeah,
DiCaprio's character. This tiny sweet girl, which I know she has acting range, but I guess I just didn't feel that or get that from her performance as Lois. And I didn't hate her. I was fine with it, but at the same time, it wasn't just like how Henry Cavill, and I agree with you on, like, thoroughly enjoy him as Superman. I thought it was a good fit. I just don't think it was a good fit for her as Lois Lane.
Okay.
So.
There's some dissonance there. I can understand that. Some people, for me, the casting of Jesse Eisenberg was the problem, with Lex Luthor. So I understand casting can have an impact on opinion, but this worked for me. I dug it. I loved the explanation for the S too, that it means hope. I was like, that's just a cool, good on you, man. Because that was new. That was not. I don't believe in comics.
Yeah.
I don't think it was. I could be wrong, and
I don't think it was.
Yeah, it was just it was a hard hill to climb, and they summited with no losses, in my opinion.
What did you think about, um, him as Clark? Because there was a lot of criticism in regards to, like, Henry Cavill as Superman, because they had this issue with him, like, as he was growing up. Like, why is Superman, like, he almost like, Andrew Garfield and Spider-Man, like, why is he this emo Superman? Like, I actually liked it, seeing him like locked in the broom closet and like, Diane Lane coming out to him is like, oh, the world's so big, mom. It's like, well, then just make it smaller, just concentrate on my voice. Like, I thought that was really cool. That was like an excellent explanation as to like a little boy who gets these crazy ass powers, and how is his mom going to help him. What were your thoughts on like his progression going into being Superman?
It was so real. And that's what I loved about it. The DC I want is the gritty DC, the not, pop off with jokes. Like, give me, because DC's always been more of a human, like, more realistic human approach to things. I mean, Superman's not real. I get that. But in general, it was just so, it was like, that's what I would expect, to just go crazy with all these inputs for somebody who's just completely immature. Like, some of the things like, oh, I just got my powers and I ran really fast. No, like, you have to struggle with this. You have to hide this. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you can do it for a reason that wasn't earned, right? So he's going out and earning it now. He's justifying having those powers and making things better. I dug that part of it where they said, oh, we're not just gonna make you happy, Superman. And oh, I fly, yeah, I fly. Like, I had to struggle with this. I had to
So
deal with my parents telling me not to do it, so I didn't stand out. So I could be a normal person. Again, Diane Lane and Kevin Costner couldn't be better. Couldn't think of a better Martha and I don't know her dad's name.
Jonathan,
Jonathan Kent.
do you think it was kind of lame that Kevin Costner like totally could have at least ran or ducked when he got killed? Like, he was like, wait, just stay, don't come after me. I could probably make some type of attempt to save my life, but just stay right there, and then just lets himself get taken by the tornado.
I think it was, that Clark could have saved him,
Right. But
but
he
he
could have done
wouldn't.
something.
But he's so obsessed with keeping his son a secret that he sacrificed his own life for it.
But he didn't have to sacrifice by giving up. He could have
Yeah,
ducked something, man. Just something, anything. Just give me something, Kevin
let the man
Costner.
look. Let Kevin Costner look at death in the face and take it. He's fucking Kevin Costner.
Man, he was definitely in a field of dreams after that because he just let himself get taken.
Hey, if you know it's your last scene, you just get as much as you can out of it.
I had an issue with that scene. I thought it was very poetic, and I thought it totally was, like, good for him on trying to save his boy, right? But a little bit of effort to just save yourself. Don't let yourself get shot by the gun point blank right in front of your face. Like,
but you got to remember that this is a different interpretation than the comics. This was not a comic interpretation. In the comics, his parents were alive when he died. Like the death of Superman, both Jonathan and Martha Kent were alive. He didn't grow up without a dad in the comics.
Right.
This was their interpretation to get you more of an emo Superman.
Their interpretation of real life, of people just trying to do some sort of self-preservation. Like, I just don't get that. Like, I don't buy it. I disagree with it. They could have killed him some other way. Where, like, it's just like, the Spider-Man.
Did you want him to get shot in an alley? Is that what you meant?
It could be any freaking way to prevent him from, like, giving up his son, or alluding to the fact that he had powers or whatever. I would have been fine if he got shot in an alley. I really would, because Clark could have stepped in front of him, saved him, and then Jonathan just, like, no, even though he knows he's not bulletproof, gets shot anyways. It would have been better than.
I don't know, man. He got killed by the most dangerous thing in Kansas, a tornado. And I bet the house landed on him too, buddy.
Yeah. So here's another thing too. So, kind of going back to, like, your rib against Batman v Superman. So wouldn't you appreciate Batman v Superman a little bit more because here's that iteration of Henry Cavill's Superman, who you really like. Everyone is shitting on this guy, and he's just trying to be a good American citizen. Really, that's what he's trying to be, is a good American citizen and trying to help, the American citizens. But yet you still aren't a big fan of that movie because of Martha. Just the word Martha just
The
triggers you.
resolution of the story is inconsistent with the setup, right? It just doesn't, like, they're mad at Superman for one disaster that they haven't even cleaned up from, and that's it, right? And Batman is, it just doesn't line up from a storyline perspective to
No,
me.
it doesn't. It
That's
doesn't make
that's why I
sense.
didn't
Like,
like it, is because the back end is disjointed and just out there, and just, again, they tried to take too many storylines to tie in to try and get people really excited, but those storylines, the initial Batman versus Superman is because Superman was the enforcer for the world and just in the pocket of the politics, in the pocket of the politicians, and Batman was like, no, this is not going the way it should, this is wrong. And Batman was standing up as his last act, right? In this, it was, oh, some buildings fell, and I drove my Jeep Renegade really, really angrily through the streets. Um, we didn't talk about that in that movie. That was so fucking dumb. Worst product placement in any movie. Like, how dare you?
I like
I'm gonna
that.
drive. Bruce Wayne does not have a cheap fucking $22,000 Jeep. There's no fucking way. There is zero chance. Zero.
Fair
No
enough.
entry level vehicles for Batman.
I thought it was a good setup, though. I thought that was like a good setup for, like, hey,
It
this is
was an
why.
interesting way to tie it in. I'll give you that. There was some animosity, an interesting way to tie it in, but in general, it didn't do it for me. And we've talked about that. But
Yeah.
again, the Man of Steel, I think was a good opening salvo to this, because in general, it was their first spin at the DCEU. This kicked it off, and it established a new feel for DC,
And you were
because it
not
had to. What?
you weren't okay with him snapping Zod's neck,
Superman doesn't kill.
right? Batman doesn't shoot guns. Did that. Batman doesn't kill either. Did that. Um, but yeah, man. Like, I guess, like, for that, you were you don't think that you would be okay with it to where it's like he did it once and, like, oh, I'm never doing this again. Like, I hate
I
that feeling. I
Again,
hate the fact
it's
that
my
I did
number
it.
two. I've overlooked that point. I'm okay with it. Did I want to see the Phantom Zone? Absolutely. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
In general, I thought it was a really good movie. I thought that they took it well, that he was upset about it, that he lost control, all of that. I get it. I get it. But again, I loved the movie.
Okay.
Loved it. That's why it's
Just
number two,
curious.
man. Number two with a bullet, a
Got it.
speeding bullet.
Well, that leaves a consensus number one. Please go ahead.
I mean, it was just great. It was just a great movie. It was the shining star of DC movies. I said that Man of Steel had to bring it back, right? Man of Steel had to kick it off post the Dark Knight trilogy. They had to say, okay, we can't do Christian Bale anymore. We can't do Batman. We're gonna try something different. We're gonna bring Superman in, and that was a great launch of a DC character that didn't get enough pub. And then you brought in Wonder Woman standalone, so cool. Just all the mythology was there, the island, it was invisible, the whole thing was just so good. The strong women characters and the strong female actors that they brought in to play those characters, getting a little Thor's mom in there, I believe, right? There's a little
Little
Renee
Thor's
Russo.
mom.
Um, wasn't Renee Russo in this movie?
No, she definitely wasn't.
Okay. I'm mistaking Renee Russo and Robin Wright. That's my bad. Robin Wright. I'm sorry. But I just thought that the film in general was so money,
Yeah.
so money. And Patty Jenkins, killer director.
Yes. I just don't. What the hell happened with the second one?
Money
That's what I
grab.
don't. Was it though?
Yeah.
Oh God. This one was so good. This one was really, really, really good.
It's just such a tight movie. Like there's not a part of it where I'm like, man, I don't like it.
You know me. I'm a big fan of movies that will give me some type of emotional reaction. I found myself smiling during this movie, like like little Diana trying to be all nosy and trying to train and everything. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, that's cute. Like yeah, she truly is like a warrior, and even at a young age, she wants to be a warrior, and her drive and curiosity was something that's relatable to just about any kid. That's one of the things that really tied it in is like I can't relate to Superman. I can relate to, like hiding in a broom closet being embarrassed or scared about something, but I can't really relate to very much anything else about Superman. Um, Oddly enough, I can relate to a little girl who's curious about stuff and wants to like fight. So it's like it takes a lot of skill to for the both the little girl who was the actor playing her, but also the director of kind of setting the scene. But also going into when Chris Pine lands on Themyscira and she's just looking at him, studying him, just as that. She's just curious. It's like, oh, I've never seen a guy before. Like here he is, all naked and shit. And she's just kind of curious and shit. It's funny though. She's like not impressed. I've read books. No big deal. It's just kind of funny. And Chris Pine just kind of like, this isn't just average. This is it's a fun movie.
No, I also like that they kept it simple, like simple enough. It was set in more of a romantic time, right? They didn't do it modern. They used more of a classic villainy. There was a real threat to the world that it was cool to see her take on. God forbid everybody fights the Nazis. But in general, I thought they didn't jam too much into it. There was no invisible jet because you know what? It just didn't fit. So they didn't just jam it in there.
Lasso
Like,
of Truth, though, they fit that in very well.
but that's a standard Wonder Woman thing. Like, you don't see Wonder Woman without it.
You know what? Something I didn't realize is that I didn't realize Wonder Woman had like a shield and a sword. I just remember the lasso and the gauntlets, and that's it.
Yeah. No, that's because you remember Super Friends.
Yeah.
The shield and the sword thing, I believe, were in the comics.
Okay. Were you surprised that she was the God Killer?
No, I mean she's you know,
So you like when they were talking about like, oh, the God Killer is the weapon, and when she goes to steal the sword, so you thought like, no, she's the God Killer, not the sword.
I don't know. I don't know. I just went along with the storyline, really.
I thought it was a cool revelation that, it's like, the sword breaks and she's like, no, the God Killer. It's like, no, she's the God Killer. She's the one that
Hmm.
is the badass that's gonna, potentially whoop everybody's ass. So I
Hmm.
thought that was kind of cool too, where she's just like the world with a lot of females, is like
Hmm.
protect the girl. She's fragile, but really like, oh, protect the world from her because she's a badass.
Were you mad that Thor stole that when it's not the hammer, it's in you?
No, no, it's fine because I think that's just like an overall a good hero's journey, as you'd say, for Thor, and for her, it's just the revelation of like, oh, everyone was protecting me from all this stuff, um, but I could be the source of this mass destruction, and I'm the weapon if need be. And I was disappointed that um, whoever, oh God, the actor's name, the guy from Harry Potter,
Oh, oh,
Remus.
um,
Remus is the Harry
David
Potter's name.
Wheeler.
David Wheeler. All right, I was disappointed that he was Ares. I thought that was like this the big cop out of everything, and I wasn't the biggest fan that it was like all tied up in a little bow. Like once he's defeated, like everyone just snaps out of it. But eh, I was willing to oversee it because everything else was so good. Even
Yeah,
Steve Trevor's assistant, like the I can't remember her name either, but she was a really cool character. Um, you know, took her shopping and everything. I thought the little dress boutique was very fun. You know, she's just like stretching her legs, kicking in the air, making sure it has good flexibility and everything.
yeah. She was ready to fight in it. No, it was just it was a good. Again, they took a lot of, there's definitely some cinema trope there for sure, right? The battle in the Nazis, the Tarzan out of the jungle situation with Gal doing the dress thing. I think that there's a lot of it just was good. It's just when you follow and I hate to say this, but when you follow the tropes, you win. You know, when you follow the story, when you respect the story as much as they respected it for this movie, that's why it's number one. That's why it made so much money. That's why it's so highly regarded. It almost doesn't feel like a DC movie. It's that good.
Do you think we are once again, I'll talk about that just like what I talked about with Shazam. Do you think we're too easy on Wonder Woman in the sense that like it was just so much better than Batman v Superman that it just like skyrocketed? It's like instantly this is this is a good movie.
Well, no, I think that this take on Wonder Woman is I mean, because the Wonder Woman TV series was syndicated when we were kids. I mean, you had to see it
Yeah,
at some point, right? And just like the Incredible Hulk back in the day, and you had an idea of this character. This wasn't like a nobody character like Shazam. Um,
true.
this was a character that was heavily, heavily touched by DC in a lot of different areas, and it elevated the character for me. It definitely get, and again, backstory is big for Mark. And just being able to give context and clarity to that character, um, really, really worked for me. And the way that they built her up and the way they made her fallible so people could see themselves in that and say, if this person can do it, I can do it. I don't have these superpowers, but again, you saw yourself as curious and wanting to get out there and wanting to be involved. And I think that it's very similar with this, with very, 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 very prevalent with this movie. And I feel the same way that you just are like, oh, I remember being curious and oh, I wanted to play with the bigger kids and all that. They just hit the good points. They did the thing very fucking well.
So just like what you said with Henry Cavill with Superman, I would argue to say that I cannot picture anyone else
No,
being Wonder Woman.
no.
I, I was like so critical because I'm a Fast and the Furious movie fan, and seeing or hearing about her being cast as Wonder Woman, I was like, "There's no way." She's as thick as my wrist. Like she is a very thin woman. And so I was thinking, like, how does that translate over to Wonder Woman? She did a fantastic job. You know, she wasn't like jacked or anything, but at the same time, uh, I thought she was very well balanced as her poise, the way she carried herself, and even just like her physical looks. It was good. Like it was just fine. There was no critiques for me. So, um, but yeah, that's something I'm a little bit not concerned about. But like, what are they going to do with Wonder Woman after the Flash movie or during the Flash movie if they do anything with her? Like, what could they possibly do? Because that's obviously, Patty Jenkins' baby and also Gal Gadot's like perfect role. Where do you go from here with Wonder Woman?
I think they could bring her back, like just like they're thinking about bringing Hugh Jackman in for a Wolverine, or doing that crossover. Like that's somebody that you just bring in. They're just gonna do the thing. Um, but she was like an Israeli Defense Force person. Like she was in the military prior to all of her modeling and acting. Like Gal
Is that
Gadot is a
true?
yes.
Are you sure you're
Gal
not like
Gadot is a
taking?
badass.
Are you sure you're not taking like the Fast and the Furious background because that's
No,
exactly what she was?
she is a badass.
Really? Okay.
She is legit badass. Like I'm a big fan.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, she served in the Israel Defense Forces.
Okay.
From 2005 to 2007, she was a sergeant.
Good for her.
Yeah, she could fucking kill you. She'd snap your neck like your fucking Zod, bro.
But
Um,
what? Are you okay if Wonder Woman kills?
Wonder Woman doesn't kill. Wonder Woman just punches people through some walls and lassos them and shit.
She doesn't kill in the comics. I thought she was more of the warrior and that stuff.
I mean, she could. So killing to me, there's two different kinds of killing, right? There's the maniacal version and the like as a result of an ass whooping, right? And I don't think that's really covered in comic movies because you don't get black and white like that. Batman makes a big deal about it because all of these separate characters from Batman murder maliciously. I think it's more of a cartoony. Oh, they're sleepy when it comes to Wonder Woman, right?
Wonder Woman like kicked the shit out of someone out of like a brick wall, so I'm sure
Hmm.
that person's dead.
They at least have some medical bills and probably a spinal.
They're definitely dead. They're definitely dead. No one
Yeah.
goes through a brick wall at that velocity.
I mean,
And
nobody falls from the top floor of a mall without getting hurt either. So there's
true.
that.
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah.
Do you think that the greatness or the really quality of this movie really affected where we ranked 84?
I think so. I think it did because I was really let down. I mean, if I were really to compare it head to head against Aquaman, I mean that's my number. Wonder Woman 84 is 9, Aquaman's number 8. I could probably bump it up a spot there. I might be able to bump it up above Snyder Cut. Um, but I don't know. The part of the reason why I like some of those other movies is like the whole grandiose, just like what I said about Batman v Superman, like
Mm-hmm.
with the Snyder Cut being ahead of Wonder Woman is the fact that you've got all these awesome characters and a little bit more fleshed out backstory for the other necessary characters. And cinematically, it's better. I can't say Wonder Woman 84 was cinematically impressive because the things that they were really good in Wonder Woman is Themyscira. All right, I already saw it. You guys are gonna do an obstacle race? Yeah, okay, fine, but nothing. There's nothing too new there. The '80s wardrobe was pretty badass. The '80s references and everything. Invisible Jet, fantastic. But I wouldn't say cinematically, that's not so much
Mm-hmm.
better than the costuming and wardrobe of the 19 whatever 30s or 20s or whatever it was.
Let's call it World War II.
I don't think it was World War II. I think it wasn't World War One.
Could have been World War One. Either
I'm
way,
trying to,
they're the fucking Germans.
dude. It's been so long since I've been in school. I don't even know what year that is. But
Mm.
yeah. But yeah, no, I think you're probably right. Where if the first one wasn't as impressive, I probably wouldn't have been as hard on that because I still enjoyed her as a character in pretty much every movie that Wonder Woman appears.
Yeah.
But then I think that is the weakest Wonder Woman appearance as a whole. The mall scene was really cool. It gives a little wink to the girl. That's awesome girl power right there. But I wasn't like too enthralled with her um as I was captivated by her in Batman v Superman, Justice League, and in Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman 84, I was like, she was almost like taking a back seat of like, okay, well, Chris Pine is there, and then we have to do something with Pedro Pascal, so he's gonna take a little bit more of a forefront. And so I think that may have been where the movie suffered. Yes, it's a Wonder Woman movie, but I don't think she was featured as such.
I'll agree. I'll agree. And you've got to build a universe out. You can't just run
Yep.
the feature of her the whole time. But yeah, this was just hands down the best DCEU movie across the board.
Yes.
I think we're pretty solid there.
Even with a weak third act villain CGI boss battle, even with that, it still was by far the best movie. But I can't be mad at your number 2 with Man of Steel.
Yeah, I will watch Birds of Prey again, just for you, just for you and your Rotten Tomatoes. The time you took to look up Rotten Tomatoes, I will at some point watch it again and let you know. But it's not a priority. I can't lie. It's not a priority.
So
but I will take it off the no chance in hell list. How about that?
We'll finish up on just because you mentioned Rotten Tomatoes. So the biggest surprises, in contrary to Rotten Tomatoes, is my number 3 of Batman v Superman, which is rated at 29% Rotten.
I agree with
top
that.
3.
29%.
Your Suicide Squad, David Ayer's Suicide Squad, is 26% Rotten. And what number was that for you?
That was my number 5.
Number 5. Okay. 26% Rotten. Man of Steel was up. Well, that was your number 2, right?
Yep.
Man of Steel, 56% Rotten. That was my number 6, but I do enjoy that movie. That might be the movie I've seen the most out of everything.
It's also the oldest.
Right. But everything else kind of falls on par. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Justice League Snyder Cut for me was at number 7, and that was at 71% fresh. I think that is just generous considering the Whedon Justice League.
Yeah, it's a hype fresh. Just like Birds of Prey might be a hype fresh. Or the Suicide Squad might be a hype fresh.
Broke the mold, my friend. Broke the mold, my friend.
Good. Don't use the mold again.
So it's what broken. Do you think about future episodes, DC movies going forward?
I mean, I do enjoy some Batman verse, like just going through the Batman movies, because for so long that was the only superhero movies we got, right? When it comes to Keaton and that. And I think that once we see Cedric Diggory play Batman, maybe we'll have to rank Batmans or something like that. But DC in general, I can't say that I'm excited by anything that they've got going right now. I haven't watched the Peacemaker series. I've heard that it's, not bad and pretty good, but again, I'm just like, I don't care. Like they've done so much damage to what I enjoyed in comics that, given the Christian Bale Batman series, I enjoyed. I liked the last one more than the middle one. I also enjoyed Batman Begins a lot. I wasn't as high on the Dark Knight as everybody else.
We're gonna have to save that for another conversation. Then that's crazy.
We can talk about that.
All right, man. Well, that wraps up this episode. Once again, this is Dan, the Part-Time Avenger,
and Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Like and subscribe.